Hi, I'm Sophia. People still ask me, why did you marry a poor man? Some think it was love. Some think it was a mistake. But nobody knows the real reason. 5 years ago, I was the richest girl in my neighborhood. My father owned a successful construction company. We lived in a huge house. I had everything. Expensive clothes. Luxury cars. A comfortable life. People smiled at me because of my father's money. I thought they truly cared about me. I was wrong. One evening, my father invited me to dinner. He smiled. Then said, "Sophia, you're 24 now. It's time to think about marriage." I laughed. "Dad, I'll marry only the man I truly love." He smiled. But he didn't answer. A week later, he introduced me to a businessman. His name was Daniel. He was rich. Successful. Well-dressed. Everyone admired him. But something about him didn't feel right. During dinner, he never asked if I was happy. He never asked about my dreams. He only asked about my father's company. About our properties. About money. When we left, I quietly told my father, "He's not the one." My father looked disappointed. But he respected my decision. A few days later, my car broke down on a lonely road. I had no signal. No idea what to do. Then, an old motorcycle stopped beside me. A young man removed his helmet. He smiled warmly. "Need some help?" His name was Ryan. His clothes were simple. His motorcycle was old. His hands were covered in grease. He was a mechanic. For almost an hour, he repaired my car. When it finally started, I smiled. I took out my wallet and offered him money. He shook his head. Then smiled. "You don't have to pay me." I looked surprised. "Why?" He laughed. "Because helping someone shouldn't always have a price." Nobody had ever spoken to me like that. For the first time, someone saw me as a person. Not as a rich man's daughter. Before leaving, he simply waved and drove away. No phone number. No expectations. Nothing. But, for some reason, I couldn't stop thinking about him. The next weekend, I drove past the same road. Not because my car had a problem. Because I hoped to see him again. I smiled when I saw his small repair shop. A simple wooden board hung outside. It read, "Ryan's Garage." I parked my car. Walked inside. Ryan looked up. He recognized me immediately. He laughed. "Your car broke down again?" I smiled. Then quietly replied, "No. I think my heart did." Ryan laughed. He thought I was joking. But I wasn't. Over the next few months, we became friends. We drank tea at a tiny roadside stall. We talked for hours. For the first time, I felt peaceful. Not because of money. But because someone liked me for who I was. Then, one evening, my father saw us together. His smile disappeared. He looked at Ryan. Then at me. And said only one sentence that changed everything. "If you marry him, don't ever call me your father again." I stood there, frozen. Ryan lowered his head. Neither of us expected those words. My father turned around and walked away. Leaving me with the hardest decision of my life. My father gave me a choice. My family, or Ryan. The man I loved. That night, I couldn't sleep. I looked at my childhood photos. Every picture had my father beside me. He had given me everything. A beautiful home. A good education. A comfortable life. How could I break his heart? The next morning, I drove to Ryan's garage. He was repairing an old car. When he saw me, he smiled. But the smile disappeared when he saw my face. He quietly asked, "What happened?" I looked at him. Then, I started crying. I told him everything. My father's words. My fear. My confusion. Ryan didn't interrupt me, he simply listened. When I finished, he took a deep breath. Then softly said, "Sophia, you should stay with your family." I looked at him. Shock filled my face. "What?" Ryan smiled sadly. "I love you. And because I love you, I don't want to be the reason you lose your father." Those words broke my heart. Not because he didn't love me, but because he loved me enough to let me go. For the next 2 weeks, I avoided him. I stopped answering his calls. I stopped driving past his garage. I thought, if I stayed away, maybe my heart would forget him. It didn't. One evening, my father came into my room. He placed a wedding invitation on my bed. I looked at it. It was my engagement ceremony. With Daniel. Just 2 weeks away. I looked at my father. My voice trembled. "Dad. Please. I don't love him." My father looked away. Then quietly said, "Love doesn't pay bills. Money does." For the first time, I realized my father wasn't choosing a husband for me. He was choosing a business partner. That night, I made a decision. The next morning, I went to Ryan's garage. But the garage was closed. The lights were off. The tools were gone. A small sign was hanging on the door. I asked the tea shop owner nearby. Then said, "Ryan left yesterday." I felt dizzy. "Where did he go?" The old man shook his head. "He didn't tell anyone." I stood there, looking at the empty garage. For the first time, I realized I might have lost him. Forever. 3 days later, it was my engagement ceremony. The hall was full. Everyone was smiling. Expensive decorations. Beautiful music. Luxury everywhere. But, inside me, everything felt empty. Daniel walked toward me, holding an engagement ring. The priest smiled. Then asked, "Sophia, do you accept Daniel as your future husband?" The entire hall became silent. Everyone looked at me. My father smiled proudly. Daniel stretched out his hand and saw Ryan standing at the entrance. His clothes were covered in dust. His face looked exhausted. He wasn't holding flowers. He wasn't holding a ring. He looked straight into my eyes. Then said only one sentence, "Sophia, I'm sorry I'm late." The entire hall fell silent. My father stood up. His face filled with anger. And Daniel slowly removed the engagement ring from the box. Ryan walked into my engagement ceremony. The entire hall became silent. His eyes were full of pain. He quietly said, "Sophia, I promised myself I wouldn't stop you. But I couldn't let you marry someone you don't love." I couldn't stop crying. My father stood up. His voice echoed across the hall. "Enough. I can't give her a luxury car. I can't give her a life full of money." He paused. Then looked at me. His voice became stronger. "But I can promise. She will never cry. Because of me." The hall became completely silent. Even Daniel stopped smiling. Ryan slowly walked toward me. Then he looked at my father. "Sir, you raised an amazing daughter. She deserves someone who loves her. He didn't fight. He simply smiled. One last time. And walked away. I watched him take one step. I looked at my father. Dad. You taught me to always choose the right person. Today, I'm doing exactly that. I ran past the guests, past the decorations, past everything money had built. I reached Ryan. I grabbed his hand. I don't need a perfect life. I only need the right partner. Ryan couldn't speak. He simply held my hand tightly. We walked out. 1 year later, our home was tiny. The roof leaked when it rained. Sometimes, we couldn't afford fancy dinners. Sometimes, we shared one meal. But, every night, we laughed together. Every morning, we drank tea on our little balcony. I had never felt richer. One afternoon, someone knocked on our door. It was my father. His hair looked grayer. His eyes filled with regret. He looked at Ryan. Then, at me. For a moment, nobody spoke. Finally, my father stepped forward. His voice was shaking. Sophia. I came to take my daughter home. I smiled softly. Then held Ryan's hand. And replied, Dad. I am home. My father looked around. At our small house. At our old table. At the simple life we were living. Then, he noticed something. I was smiling. A real smile. Not the smile money had bought. The smile love had given me. Slowly, tears rolled down. That day. My father didn't lose a daughter. He gained a son. And I learned. The richest person isn't the one who has the most money. It's the one who has someone who stays even when life becomes difficult.